It's Transform Your Relationships Live. I'm Laura Rubinstein with the amazing and fabulous Dr. Rhoberta Shaler. Hi, Rhoberta.
Hello and happy holidays. Good grief.
Good
They're
grief.
here. They're here.
They're here. Oh my gosh. I hope everybody's ready. Ready or not, here they come. Are we ever really ready is the question. Or are we
Well,
ever not ready?
I wonder if there is a need to be so ready. I was just speaking to someone this morning and saying, this is the perfect holiday season to make every possible change you ever wanted to.
Oh,
Because we have total reasons why we can and cannot do things. And so it allows us to look at it and say, why did I choose all these things? And are they really in alignment with my values? And is it coming from wanting to? Like I was working with a young client the other day. He was 18 years old and his parents are splitting up. And he said to me, I don't want to buy my father a Christmas gift. Do I have to? And I said, no, you don't have to. And he said, really? I said, no, gifts are not obligations. And if they are, then that's an opportunity for you to look at it and say, is that appropriate for me? Do I want to feel obligated to give you a gift? Now, of course, he's going through some grief because he's only known now for a month that his parents are separating. But the actual fact is, he doesn't like his dad. And he thinks his dad is disrespectful and mean and a whole lot of other things. But there he was in grief about, do I have to give my father a present? Perfect example of freedom. No, you don't. You
yeah.
don't.
Yeah. And we did a whole show 2 weeks ago about gifting and obligations. I want to remind everybody, go back to that live stream because
Right.
we gave you the formula pretty much of how to not gift without, obligation, not feeling like you have to gift, and gift when you really want to gift. And it's a perfect example. This kid is going through a ton of loss, and he has to honor, the more in touch he can be with his emotions, the better. And I think that's kind of the message with the holidays is, I think when the more in touch we are with our feelings, the more choice we have about it, the more we can process that grief and the loss. There's huge loss in so many ways this year. And it's not about denying it, and it's not about wallowing in it either. Would you agree?
Oh, I absolutely agree. It's about awareness and self reflection. And those are really important things. That's really what I meant, Laura, when I said we get to redesign and rethink it all because we get into patterns. This is the way we do it. We even say these are our traditions. Well, some of them may be, putting up the tree on a certain day and having particular ornaments. If Christmas trees are your thing, that may be a tradition, but that doesn't mean that you can't blow it up and say, do you want to do it differently? Or do we really need to exchange gifts with everybody? I mean, who's going shopping these days? Do we really need gifts? Is it really an experience? Is it time? Is it a Zoom call? What is it? What is the gift? Maybe the gift is a phone call. Maybe it's a Zoom call. Maybe it's the willingness to spend time and hang out. And maybe you make that shift this year. And there's no grief if it's something that felt like an obligation and you've given it up.
Yeah, I think shifting our way of being during this time is powerful. Like you said, we can design it as we want, but it's not to negate the tradition or the ritual, but it's to create the ritual anew in a new way. I, over Thanksgiving, couldn't get together with my traditional Thanksgiving that I love, that I just, it was a big loss to not be able to do. So I said to myself, how can I create a tradition? How can I do the tradition in an alternative way? And of course, we came up with Zoom. But then I also was thinking about what's this year been about and how can I bring in something new from the year. And so I started thinking about Indigenous people, and because Thanksgiving is that time of year, and I realized, oh my gosh, there's been these atrocities that we've done, and we're celebrating this Thanksgiving. What if we reframed it and we actually brought awareness to this? And I brought a whole new level of meaning. And that's what tradition and ritual is all about. It's bringing meaning into your life. It's a way of marking time and bringing in meaning. So, how can you mark this time? How can you bring meaning in a powerful way that really nurtures you, nurtures your soul,
Mhm.
nurtures your family.
And is in alignment with who you are today. It may not be that what happened in 20 years ago is actually meaningful to who you are now. And that's sort of hooked into that obligation. We've always done it that way. But
Right.
what a wonderful opportunity to rethink, reframe, to, as you did for Thanksgiving, whatever your holiday celebrations are, you can make them brand new. This is the moment. But, for this young man, he was going through grief, as you said. Of course, he's experiencing a loss that hasn't happened yet in terms of the physicality, because they have to sell a house and do all of that. So they're still all living together. So it's a future pacing grief, but very important to recognize that there it got tied into the holidays. Do I have to give my father a gift? I don't even really like him and I don't respect him. Well, no, you don't. And those are moments when you can make a shift between grief and allowing yourself to have freedom to reconfigure something, rethink something, let something go. Maybe you have to let something go. Maybe somebody has passed or a relationship is no longer available to you and you have to let it go. Well, that's a gift you can give yourself. It isn't giving up. I had this question so many times when I was working with people who had a lot of loss. And if they'd lost a child, for instance, it was really freeing to them when I would say, when you are no longer thinking about the child every single day, it doesn't mean that you've forgotten the child. It doesn't mean that you're denigrating their memory by not continuing to grieve. Moving on and keeping them in your heart is a way of saying, I am now beginning to transcend my grief. It's not that I've forgotten, it's just that I need to move on and honor that as a memory now. And these things are all up for grabs this year, and I think that's what's so exciting.
I think a lot of people have collapsed in a lot of emotions of guilt and victim being feeling like they're a victim to this loss, and they hold on to it because of those unresolved emotions. Whereas
Hmm.
if you think about it, like you said, the memory of this person, the vitality of that person, what that person meant to you, if you live your life as though you are honoring that energy of them, you really get that freedom to be, to
Yeah.
grow, to enjoy life. Otherwise, you're in jail, your own emotional grief jail, for
Yeah.
that. And that's a really sad place to do it. And I just want to reach out to those people and hug them and say, you're so, yes, you had a loss, but you have resilience. You have the ability to live. They don't. So live the life with their energy, make the most of it. And I wish there was something I could do to just heal it, but I know I can't. So what could be a first step for someone who's like in this, what I call grief jail?
Well, it's a very graphic way to put it, and you can be trapped in your grief because what I said earlier, you may think that if you're not, then you're not paying tribute to that person or whatever loss you've had. But the next step is to say, that person would want me to move on. Let me honor. Maybe a ritual will help you. You know, I honor you, and I'm moving on with your memory and your spirit within me, moving me towards greater heights. Something that maybe marks the shift for you. Do something like that, whether it's in your journal and that's enough for you, or maybe that you do a burning bowl, as we many of us do at New Year's, burning all the little pieces that have written on it what we're leaving behind, and then opening ourselves to what's new. But certainly see yourself as being on a journey, and you're not going to go backwards. Okay,
Yeah,
you
I
sat for a minute and you felt everything. Now pick yourself up and keep moving.
keep listening to, the what's underneath the grief. It's like, well, there's some sort of light there's some sort of energy of wanting more, otherwise you wouldn't feel this, and wanting it to go back the way it isn't is like the definition of insanity. Wanting things to change and they're never going to change that way. You can't bring somebody back from the dead literally, but you can bring their energy forward into the future. So
Mm-hmm.
what might be the way to do that? Love the idea of lighting a candle or journaling. Journal with them every day if you need to, but bring that energy out of the, like you said, the trap, but into the light with you to
Mm-hmm.
to thrive with you. There's no need that your soul has to be so trapped. I want to untrap souls, because I think the energy of grief, if you're not dealing with it, comes out in negative ways in our
Mm-hmm.
body physically, in our relationships, in the what we can produce in our lives. So
Mm-hmm.
this is a great time to contemplate freedom.
And what freedom really means to you. I mean, you're free all the time if you're free in your mind. That there's always that photograph, or not, it's a graphic where there's bars in front of someone, and down the sides, and they're holding onto the bars going, oh, I'm stuck, failing to realize there's no back on the jail. Right?
They're not in any
Yeah.
room.
No, they're
They're
just
just
like
looking
stuck.
forward.
They're
They're
just
just looking.
stuck in what they're, I'm stuck in here. Well, you're not. You're really not. And you're not denigrating anybody's memory or giving up on them or leaving them behind if you then move on. Take them with you. Take the best parts with you. Let them move you forward. Even just asking yourself that question I mentioned, what would they want me to do? Right? Move forward. It doesn't mean you're giving up on them. You're not leaving them behind. You're taking them with you as an informed and integrated part of who you are, because you had that experience. You shared that love, whatever. And on the other hand, I had again someone write and say, my hijackal mother died this week and I don't feel anything. What's wrong with me? You don't need to feel anything except freedom.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to be criticized, judged, and put down and demeaned, and you don't have to be afraid. You don't have to walk on eggshells anymore. You don't have to have anxiety. All of that, that takes a lot of getting used to, that you're actually free now, that it's okay. you know I remember
Yeah.
when my mother died, and I nursed her to her death. She wanted to die at home, and she was my second parent to pass. And we did the whole thing. We had the celebration of life. We had the big party and everything. And it was like, okay, tie that one up with a bow and move on, right? Whew, that was okay. And I think when you have some idea that, why do we always speak so well of the dead? Sometimes they weren't worth speaking well of in life. You know, you can be respectful because that's who you are. But just because they died doesn't make them into a saint. So be realistic. That's my point.
And I think that there's also those people who have cared for people that were not hijackals, but now there's also a sense of relief, because there was
And
a
you're
whole lot of,
allowed.
yeah, there's a whole lot of stress and strain. Now they're relieved of that burden.
Well, I think too, your identity gets caught up. Like for 9 years, I looked after a neighbor who went into a nursing facility, and I was the only human really that saw him. And the last 18 months of his life, I fed him his dinner every night because he was losing his sight. And I remember that feeling, Laura, of when he passed, he was 101. And what do I do at 5 o'clock? Like,
You had to
what do
redefine your identity, right?
yeah, I did. Like, I was a caregiver. I had my practice. I did all of this, but you know, where my office was near the assisted living facility. Where I shopped was near that because I was always having to go every time he got unwell. So my whole life was tied into being his friend. And then when he passed, it took me 4 months. And I was able to say, I don't want to shop in that area anymore. I can let go of my need to do all my shopping there. I can let go of the lease on my office. It no longer needs to be there, right? It took a lot of thinking through at really deep levels that kept popping up. And that's what'll happen, because our identity as a caretaker, our identity as a daughter, our identity as those things gets caught up in the ending of the life, and then we have to redefine.
Yes, and that's the good part of it. It's like the process. The process is the process if we trust it. It's going to look different for everybody, but if
Yes.
we stay present with it and we start acknowledging, okay, this doesn't feel well, or I'm in a habit, I'm used to being this, caretaker. Okay, now what's my life about? We have to contemplate that. And how do we say goodbye? How do we put the past in the past and start creating the future? It's all a process, and you don't have to do it alone. I mean, you work with people all the time on that. I work on hypnosis. Once you're clear of where you want to go, we can set the future part. So it doesn't have to be a lonely journey, even if your immediate family or friends are not the right people. In fact, they're probably not the right people to help you psychologically. Would you say? Would you agree with that? Let's talk about that. Processing grief with friends and family versus a professional.
Well, I think they're very, very different, and I think that's your point. I mean, if everybody's sitting down in the grief, we can talk about it. We can talk about the past. We can talk about those kind of things, but the moving forward will not probably arise from that, because that's the relationship that ended, and everybody's experienced that ending. And there may be people in your friend group or your family group who are stuck and they want to stay stuck. Like, this is not good to move on from. It means that we didn't care enough about this person. Um, and so they can't help you move on because they don't want to move on. They don't see the value of moving on. And maybe you feel an obligation to be honoring their stuckness with thinking that you should be stuck too.
Mhm.
So that's when a professional can really help.
Yes, get through your and unstuck yourself.
Yeah,
But
and
you have to be willing, right?
yes, and every person is different as to how long in that journey that you're going to sit down and remember this person.
Yeah.
You're just going to sit and think it through and work it through. And then when your time to get up and walk forward comes, then let's not have people dragging you back into the sitting position, right?
And I like to feel it through. Thinking it could take you down a really dark path, but let's feel it through. Let's really, sometimes our feelings, I like to say, are like Chinese. We don't really, unless you speak Chinese, but if you don't speak Chinese, it's like, and you don't understand it until you listen to it and you feel into it. And then it might and you ask a question, okay, what do I need to do with it to have what I want next? And you may have to think about, what do you want next?
Mm-hmm.
What kind of life, there may be a lot of fear to work through, and fear is good if you can sit with it, be with it, listen to it, and then um, not let it run your life.
And
you
maybe
know
you're afraid of sitting with it. Maybe you are afraid of deep feelings. Maybe you think you'll get lost in them. Maybe you think only weak people grieve. These are important other aspects to think of. Like, it's not just, okay, suck it up, buttercup, and move on. Death happens. People break up. Come on. I mean, those are people that are in denial of their own feelings. So if you sit for the time that you need to, that is not wallowing, but say, no, I feel like I've honored this. I feel like it's time for me to move on. And then you move on, and you may need some support to do that. Some people are going to build a condo and live in the past, and that you just have to honor that decision on their part, but you have the opportunity to move on.
yeah. And yes, it's going to take some strength and courage, but you don't have to do it alone, especially if you get the helpful support, the professional support that you need. And I know you can be found at forrelationshiphelp.com. And there is just so much you do for people that I just want to make people aware that they don't have to do it alone. In the holidays, it may be the signal, you may be getting the signal that you need that extra support. So
Hmm.
definitely reach out.
Well, people with hijackals, those extremely difficult people, this is the time of year when they're going to bad act. You know, what they don't like is to not be the center of attention. So any celebration, any tradition, any accomplishment that you have that you'd like to celebrate, they don't like that. It's not about them. So they make it about them. And that goes in two directions. Either they'll blow something up or they'll do that. Well, you can stay here if you like, but I'll wait for you in the car. Right? And notice that. Notice that those are signs and symptoms of being with a toxic person. And they will show up in the holidays. They absolutely will. And your gift won't be good enough. Whether you bought them exactly what they asked for or you bought them nothing, you can't win. Don't try to win. Don't hope to win. Don't expect to win. Know these things if you're with a toxic
Lower your
person.
expectations.
Yeah, they're going to be them. It's not about what you're doing. They are dedicated to behaving badly and
Hmm.
responding poorly. So allow yourself that freedom to go, oh, yeah, they're going to be a bad actor. They're going to pout. They're going to sulk. They're going to do the silent treatment. They're going to walk out. They're going to blow something up. They're going to do all those things. Okay, that's who they are. It is not a personal attack on me. That's just them doing them. Don't leave with them. If they decide to walk out, say, oh, great, we don't have that anymore. Let's enjoy our time together.
It's amazing the emotional string that is created when they do that. They know how to pull on those strings. If you can break the string, you can start breaking the pattern. Not easy when you're worried about how they're going to treat you afterwards, when you're worried that you're going to lose their love, when you're worried that they're going to retaliate in some way. But setting the breaking the pattern is like a first step, and knowing how to do it strategically is your expertise.
Yeah, they're going to do all those things. Even if you go with them, it won't be good enough. It won't be enough because now they have no new audience, so you're the audience, so they're going to behave badly. So don't go. You know, don't go. Don't say, "Oh, I'm got to keep the peace, got to keep the peace." No, that's a choice. They're an adult. They want to go off. Go. Go. They'll come back because they have nowhere to be the center of attention. So they'll come back and try to be the center of attention again. So try that. You know, if you've got one of those explosive people who needs to be all that in a bag of chips, just let them go. Let them go. And, you know, if they come back, that's nice. If they don't come back, get an Uber. But
Kind of
enjoy your
exercising your
time.
freedom.
Yeah, exactly.
That's great.
Exactly.
Right. So we want to encourage all of you to feel the grief, set your mind up for the freedom, the type of, I don't know, holiday you want, and maybe the type of new year you want, and start letting your brain kind of gel around it. Things will show up, you know,
Make
just
some
like they did.
space.
Yeah. Take some space, take some time to just like ask the question and be in the question. I like, and that's kind of like what we've talked about in the past. Use meditation to be in the question, or just some quiet time in the bathtub, or walking on a walk, whatever it is for you. Take some time for you this holiday, whether it is to grieve or to plan your freedom or both. Plan
Hmm.
for what freedoms you want to experience. It's a time, it's a rich time this year. And the more time when you take, especially the emotional time, and you really dive in to explore it, it becomes a very useful time for the rest of your life.
Oh, yeah. And there's a reason that that's my logo, right? You see that person emerging from
Mm.
the past?
Hmm.
You know, that keep that in your mind. Keep that in your mind that you can emerge, that you can lead to where you want to go in life. You don't have to stay stuck. You don't have to just sit in the past or live from the past, which you can't help doing, but you can leave the past behind and make a new future. You can emerge.
I just realized, well, my logo is very similar. Do you know that? I've had it since before the century, actually. No, just about, yeah. Yeah, before the century, I got my logo, but it was all about blossoming
Hmm.
and, finding different ways to express yourself, to be yourself, to find your way, to look
Right.
within. That's why there's an I in mine. So I love that you bring up the logo.
Yeah, well, the reason that it's there is because my people are moving out of something. They
Hmm.
need to move out of something. So I hope that just keep that in your mind like, okay, I can move out, I can expand. It's possible, and if you need help, I'm always here for you.
Great. It's always awesome to share some holiday time with you and to talk about little deeper, touchier subjects that people aren't. So hopefully this has brought you some love, some light, some guidance. And thank you for the love, Gail and Thebo and Karen. We love that you're here. And we will be back in a couple of weeks for the next episode in the new year, right?
We will for sure.
Oh my God, I can't believe it's going to be a new year. I'll see you next year, everyone.
Yeah. Bye bye.
Bye for now.